Good morning, everybody. Let's see, are we live over here on the YouTube? There we are. Fabulous. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the studio. Happy Monday. It is week 2 of April, and I've got some stuff to show you. I'm going to show you what happened in drawing journals last week, and then I've got a few things from multimedia, and just to kind of give you some context on what the kids are learning this week. So before we dive in, everybody has class this week. It's week 2 of April. No funky off days. Nothing weird going on. All right. Okay. Preschool fundamentals. Now, I got this wrong last week. I mean, I knew that Flatwoods was doing something different. I thought they were just switching their arrival activity. That was not the case. They actually flipped week 1 and week 2. And the reason is because we share the tools that we need for the arrival activity for have you seen a flower. So last week, Liberty Studio did Have You Seen a Flower, which is a poem that has been illustrated into a children's book. We also made art using flowers, and I have a video to show you. Click. So here we are. We've got the flower pieces that have all been taken apart and put them on top of fabric because it's fibers month. So we have a piece of muslin and an acrylic board. And then we're using rubber mallets in order to make our marks on our paper with the pigments from the flowers. So this was our arrival activity in Liberty. Flatwoods will do this week. We share the acrylic boards and the hammers. So I don't know. I guess I could probably invest in a set for each of us, but it is a project we literally do one time a year for one class. So it just seems silly. So we share it and flip it back and forth. So this is what Liberty did last week with Have You Seen a Flower? Flatwoods will do it this week. And then we also did some flower art with Have You Seen a Flower? And we made potions and things with fruit and things that smelled good and little potion bottles. Flatwoods will do that all this week. Duck Soup is what Flatwoods did last week. And we'll read that funny book about a duck and make feather art and do a chalk pastels still life using fresh flowers. So just a flip-flop happening for the first 2 weeks of preschool fundamentals. And then we'll do our last one next week, which will be Lumberjack's Beard. For our K-3 classes, so I brought an example. We are doing these boho style yarn wall hangings. So they are extremely varied. So when you see this one, know that there are so many choices the kids get to make that theirs could look totally different than this. This one is super colorful. It has lots of different widths of yarn. It doesn't have any sort of pattern to it. Theirs might have a pattern to it. It might use a limited palette. It might use a completely different palette. But just to kind of give you an idea, we also have this one trimmed kind of on an angle. They could, trim it in a V. They could, so lots of different options. So this is this month's project. If you've been to the studio, I'm sure that you've seen these hanging all over because we love our fiber art wall hangings. The kids last week, that's what these pictures are. The kids last week kind of just the goal was to grasp what the project was. Fiber arts is something that, we don't get an opportunity to do a whole lot. And it's not like drawing and painting where you just automatically know what it is. And so we started big and we talked about what fiber arts kind of as a whole was, what a tapestry was, that kind of stuff. We looked at slideshows of other woven wall art just to get an idea. And then we spent most of the class learning and practicing the skill that it takes to get the yarn knotted onto the stick. So this is the slip knot where you take the yarn, you fold it in half, you loop it over the stick, and then you pull the tails through. Right, so there's our little slip knot. So we practiced that skill over and over and over again because you're gonna have to do this a lot. And we wanted them to feel confident doing that because all the fun stuff builds from that. Because once we have it looped over, now we can braid it. Now we can twist it. Now we can knot it. Now we can make pom-poms and add them. So a lot of our classes did get to the braiding and the knotting step. I know a few of them also taught pom-pom making so the kids could understand that was coming. For the next 3 weeks, it's really just about creating this. And so our goal for this week is going to be to get the body and the bulk of the yarn on it. And if you saw some of the pictures on social media, a lot of the practice was done with like our natural colored yarn, our whites and our browns and our grays. They're not the most popular colors for the wall hanging. But we do have just, I mean, gorgeous yarn. I'm sitting here petting it. We have gorgeous yarn that's variegated, that's sparkly, that's different like textures. So like here's one that's like this flossy. Hang on, look at that. Right? So they'll have lots of choices to make on what types of yarn they use and how they put it on there and how long they have it before they trim it off. So they'll be building the bulk of that this week, and then hopefully we can spend the next 2 weeks doing all the knotting, beading, braiding, pom-poms, adornments of our wall hanging. And then their hanger will probably be wire with beads that goes on here. So and that's assuming we have time. That's kind of like a, hey, when you're done, make a hanger for it. If we don't have time, we'll just use a string hanger. Okay. So that's what's going on for our K-3 classes. Fiber Arts Month is so chill and awesome. For our 4th and 5th in our homeschool, they're doing needle felting. Now, last week I showed you needles, but I failed to bring the actual wool roving to show you. I had it, and then I left it on the table in there. So this week I brought it. So this is what a packet, we buy these little multi-packs of wool roving. And so when you open it up, you have this kind of bundle of floss. And I chose a pinky red because I wanted it to show up against the green screen. But you can see it just pulls apart kind of like cotton candy does. So this is what wool roving or carded wool looks like. And that is what we are using to do all of our felting. So their first job is to take it and to pull it into those flossy threads because you want to work in like thin layers at a time. And then they're using felt back. So something like this. It's a piece of felt. We practiced on white last week. A felt back and a barbed needle, a felted needle to tangle up all of these fibers and attach them to the felt. And then they just paint with this. It's kind of like, well, let me lay down a little bit of this color, and then you can lay down another color. So that's how the needle felting works. Last week we did a lot of practice. You can see our artist right here is practicing on just a piece of scrap white felt. We have so much white felt because for those of you who've been to the art show, you know that our art show panels are covered with white felt to give it kind of a finished look. And so I had bought white felt in bulk, and we still have tons of it. So we're practicing here on white felt. They're just kind of the technique and understanding the limitations. Maybe, I mean, it's not the same as drawing and painting. You're there's just a different skill set. So that when they come up with their plan for their final art, they understand the scope of the project. We also looked at a slideshow of different felted fiber artists, contemporary artists who do felting. So that's what this picture is of here in Liberty, is going through the slideshow of inspiration so we can get an idea of what other artists do in the field. And then this week we'll actually start the project. So all practice and scope of the project last week, and then this week we're going to start. So our felt backs are about this size. They can be bookmarks, or they can be cuffs, like wearable cuff bracelets. We'll finish that with a button if they want. If they do a bookmark, we'll finish it with a tassel. So this is what they're going to be decorating. So it's a pretty small canvas so that they can focus more on design and technique and less on like hurrying up and trying to finish. Once the felting design is done, which they should be probably 50% done by the end of class this week, then we can add more embellishments. So we'll do other things within the fiber arts realm. So things like embroidery, stitching, things like adding buttons or sequins. Learning how to sew on a button is a valuable skill. So that's what our kids will be doing in fiber arts this month. Move that over there. For our 6th, 7th, and our 8th, 12th, now we are building 3-dimensional sculptures using this same like flossy felted roll roving, right? And so it takes a lot of practice. This is not a really great picture because we did zoom in a lot, but you take those flossy, airy fibers and you compact them onto that felt pad and you use the barbed needle to tangle them all up until they become something really dense. And so this is one that I pulled out. They've just kind of keeping them in little bags. But you can see it's almost like a ping pong ball, and it is dense. If I were to push it, I assume this is the head of our sculpture that we're working on. So this is a lot of felt. Volume wise, this was a lot in order to get it this dense, and a lot of time spent to stab, 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 stab. But you can see we've starting to get some shape to it. Our little creature head, something. I don't know the vision. I haven't seen it. So the 6th, 7th, and 8th, 12th are building using either, like for the big forms, white or black, and then they can cover it with the colors. It's just easier for us to manage the inventory of felt. Yeah. So this is a really good start. Actually, I'm really pleased that they got this much done. The goal is to have the sculpture in its kind of base form done by the end of class this week. So that way we can spend 2 weeks getting skins of color on, adding finishing touches, and all the detail work. Okay. It is a lot of repetitive, focused work time in order to get something this far. So good job to that artist. All right. So for our 6th, 7th, and 8th, 12th artists, a lot of them have done felting before. This is not a new thing for them. It's maybe it's something they haven't seen in a year, but they're back to it and they're super excited for it. They're doing a fantastic job getting all of this stuff built, and so I can't wait to see what they come up with. They had free reign on what their subject was going to be. All we asked is that they kept it small. Not because of the supplies, but because of the time frame. So I just wanted to make sure that we set them up for success and something that they can finish. All right, creative explorations. So, where's my phone button? Oh, we'll talk to Stephanie in a minute. Creative explorations. We've got our April stations happening. So for our media focus, we're doing sticks and yarn. I've got a picture here. This right here, there's our sticks and our yarn. And Liberty on Friday was the most popular station. Everybody loved making wands or wrapping yarn around sticks and exploring that as something they could build. We also, so we've got our art history focus, which is Claude Monet. That's pulled from our fundamentals curriculum. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. And then lots of things that are very natural world inspired, right? And then I wanted to show this. We also got out some needle felting for our creative exploration kids in Liberty. They were interested in it, and we felt like if they wanted to try it, they sure could. So we did play with that a little bit. It wasn't a huge hit, not like the sticks and yarn, but we did play with some needle felting. For our Drawing 101 kiddos, now this is where we get into some journals, right? So we are back to benchmarks for Drawing 101, meaning we are looking at something or a lesson that we've done in a previous month. We did this in September. We do these benchmarks 2 times a year, September and April. If you weren't here in September, that's okay. It's just a new benchmark. It's like a new starting point, and it's not a test or anything like that. We just kind of like to repeat things. There's comfort in repeating a lesson or a drawing that you've done before. So we did self-portraits. Now keep in mind, we have now done, if you've been with us since September or even since January, we did an entire month of portrait and figure. So you would think that if you had 4 lessons in drawing people, in using colored pencils, in values and shading and placement, and that you would have improved a little bit. So we've got some self-portraits happening and lots of good stuff. They also used thought bubbles in order to give us an idea of maybe things about us that aren't just our physical appearance. So some illustrative techniques as well. This week in our 101 lessons, we're going to be doing a benchmark lesson that is focusing on facial features. And it's less about drawing the face and more about values. It's just a familiar thing for us to draw. When we did it in September, we do it with just the eyeballs. And then now that we are a little bit later in the year, we've got, I should have brought them. They're funny looking. They're like puzzle pieces. They're little black and white images of eyes. So like here's an eye and here's an eye and here's an eye, and they're all cut apart. Well, now we have like, here's a nose, here's a nose, here's a nose, here's a mouth. So you can kind of like Mad Libs a portrait together if you want to, which is kind of silly because they're all from different people, young, old, different skin tones, different different like angles, different expressions are happening. And of course, but it's just like zoomed in on one part of the face. So they're kind of funny to look at. So the kids will practice drawing those either as a collection or putting them into a face if they wanted to. But the focus on that black and white imagery is less about lines and more about value, which is a scale. Like not everybody in 101 is ready for that kind of cognitively understanding of what a value is. Like, what do you mean that there isn't a line between my lip and my skin? What do you mean that's not a line? Well, it's not. It's a change in value. But that's not something that we get just like that because I told you. For a lot of our kids, this is something that they'll gradually get to, and they'll get it by the time they go to 103 or 102. But in 101, we're just presenting the opportunity to learn those terms and to explore them. So so we're going to be drawing all those facial features. The reason we choose the face is because when you're talking about values instead of lines, there's really nothing better than the face. So so that's why we have that, and it's just a chance to explore observational drawing with values. In our 102 level classes, realistic is also back to benchmarks. And so right here, you can see our artist has the shapes. So these are 3D forms that are sitting on the table, a sphere, a cone, and a cube. They also have a rectangular prism and a cylinder, I think, and maybe a triangular prism. So we're drawing those, and we did that again in September. So this is a benchmark lesson for us. We're working on so many different things here. This is all about everything. I mean, you've got scale, you've got form, you've got value, you've got the rules of linear perspective, all sorts of things. So lots of great stuff happening here. I was going to mention too, because I don't think I did in the beginning of the semester, but for those of you that are maybe new, and this is terrible because it's the second week of April, but your kids' journals always have the lesson label. Some of kids put it like on the back of the drawing, and some kids put it on the next page. But it always has the lesson label here, and that's to give you an idea of what the lesson was, and to be able to like have a conversation about it, right? So that you're not just like, well, tell me about this, and there's nothing to go off of. Instead, you can ask better questions. You can say, did you like the graphite or the charcoal better? Or what did you learn about perspective? Because it says what the objectives are of the lesson or anything like that. So just to give you an idea. Or I mean, not that you have to talk to them about it, but maybe it's just to give you an idea of what we were doing. Here's another great example of our 3D shapes. And one more, and I was going to show, I think, on this one. Yeah, so this one here, this artist has been with us since September, so I can tell because her book is really full. But like this is her 3D shapes in April, right? So if I flip back to 3D shapes in September, that's what we had. Now that is really good. Those are great angles. That's the right. I mean, it looks just like a cube, and she's got value going on. That's all she got done in a 90-minute class, probably because she worked really hard on getting that perfect. But look at how much we did this time. Yep. So, it's not, again, it's not a test, but it's interesting to me to see what the growth was. So, oops. She has so many pages that this one is, I think, a loose leaf page that she probably stapled in or glued in because there's not room. All right, our 102s this week in Advanced Realistic are going to be working with observational drawing again, but this time from photograph. Remember, we always draw from life, we draw from photograph, and we draw from our imagination in 102 Realistic. This one here is going to be from photograph, and we're going to draw landscapes using chalk pastels, so different media, switching from that black and white graphite or charcoal into something that has color. In our 102 Illustrative, the month is all about automobiles and cars and planes and trains and like machinery, things that are not people but could be characters in a story. And so a great example is the movie Cars, which I mean my kids were little when Cars came out, so that's the one I always think of. But Transformers is another really great example of characters that are not people, right? And so we learned how to draw different vehicles and how to draw them in 3 dimensions, right? So a lot of times we're going to get like a flat 2D image, and so we're trying to get it so it's 3D, and then we can turn it in space, because just like a character moves in space, so too does a vehicle. It doesn't just move in this plane, and we're always 90 degrees to it. So we practiced that a little bit. We're going to continue on that actually. So this week we're going to work on drawing it from different perspectives, and then as we move through the month, we'll actually turn it into a character. So it'll have a personality, it'll be in an action pose, that kind of stuff. In our 103 lessons, I didn't bring anything. They barely got started, but I did find a cute picture. Our 103 classes for, where'd my notes go? I'm going to get this wrong. Our 103 classes for realistic are doing a chalk pastel landscape painting. We call them a painting because traditionally when you work edge to edge in chalk pastel, it's considered a painting, which is funny in drawing class. It's the drawing medium. We're going to be making a landscape using a reference image and then interpreting it however we would like. It doesn't have to be a copy. It could be, you know, a compilation of multiple images if it wants to. For a lot of our kids, they looked at a slideshow last week. They found their image and they got started on that, and they'll work on building up layers. Our goal this week is to have everything sketched out and then have that base layer of color down, which we call blocking it. And then from that base coat, then you can build up more and more. For our 103 classes in illustrative, they are studying the art of Frank Miller, who is a high contrast, super dynamic, a little bit gritty and edgy kind of artwork. And so we're using Sumi ink for that, calligraphy nibs, brushes, and glass pens. It was like, what was the other tool? Glass pens. They spent a lot of time last week just understanding the style of Frank Miller and then working on their own mark making skills. Calligraphy nibs is a new tool for us, so we wanted them to have some time to play with that. Not all of them have used glass pens. You know, they're really familiar with Sharpies and microns, but we just wanted to give them a tool that is maybe a little less precise. So Sumi ink with these mark making tools gives you, you know, a different style, a little more expressive nature. And so we're going to play with that. The great thing about Sumi ink versus using like a pencil is that it doesn't have a grayscale. It is black or it is paper. Those are your choices. So super high contrast work. They'll have to decide what's black and what's white, and those are your two options. You can do a little bit of grayscale using some cross-hatching techniques, and I'm sure some of them will. But we are looking for something that is expressive in mark making instead of precision, which for some of our kids is going to be a challenge. So they played with tools. They talked about composition. This week they'll do some sketching. We'll hopefully get a pencil sketch down, and we'll start inking in week 3. Let's go through some housekeeping things. I obviously only made one slide, which is fine. Junior staff deadline is today, so that's for new staff members. If you're wanting to join the teaching team for summer, this is for kids who have finished 5th grade or are finishing it this year, and they want to be a helper through the summer. It is not a like all summer commitment. It is not a summer job. You are not here every week or anything like that. It would, you know, at minimum, you're here for 1 week a summer. So that's it. Like, you pick your camp week and that's your week and that's it. We do have some kids who come and they help with some of the mini camps, or they have some that maybe will come for 2 camps or at max 3 camps. But for most of our junior staffers, it's like one week. That's it. We need you. And so it's not a huge commitment, but it is a really fun opportunity to get to practice your leadership skills. It is a great first job experience. So you're going to fill out an application. You're going to go through an interview process. You're going to get a job offer. You're going to fill out your availability. You're going to get your job schedule. You're going to do job training. So hopefully it's a very positive experience for them to be able to see, you know, what makes a great employee, and also how should you be treated at a job. So we're hoping it's a great experience for them. I know we love having them. These are our kids. And so you have to be an Orange Easel student. It's not open to the public. It is something that we offer just to weekly Orange Easel kiddos. Okay. But if you are interested in that, the application deadline is today for new staff so that we can interview you guys this week. If you are a returning staff member, so you've done this before, you've already been a junior staffer, you got the t-shirt and everything, you don't have to do the application again. Just get on the website. The link is in the notes, or you can send me a message, or you can go to Google and Google Orange Easel Junior Staff, and it'll show up. There's a link to the availability form, and I just need returning staff members to fill out their availability. The deadline is not today. It's a little bit further off. I can't remember, and I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to get it wrong. So I do want to make sure that you guys know, get your availability in, because that tells me, yes, I'm in for this summer. And once I get your availability, I'll send you a confirmation that's like, gotcha, nothing you need to do, but I got it. And so for all of my returning junior staffers, just make sure you get that in. Otherwise, I don't know to put you on the schedule. I don't know to order you a t-shirt. I don't know to plan on you being here. So that is how you tell me I'm in, is to fill out your availability. Okay, so application deadline today for new staff. Availability, please, sometime in the next week for my returning staff. I don't remember the deadline, but it's not this week. It's probably next week. Okay, and then just a reminder, there are no regular classes in June, July, and August. As we come down the the last stretch of the school year, we've got all of our April classes happening right now. May classes for our fundamentals and our creative explorations, there's nothing you need to know. You're gonna have 3 classes. We're gonna be like, peace out, see you guys next school year. Hopefully we'll see you this summer. If you're in multimedia or drawing class, you're gonna have 3 classes that meet at your regular class time, and then an open studio for that last week for the 4th class. And that's because it's after Memorial Day. And for a lot of our people, they have checked out, or schools are out, so they're on vacation. So we don't do regular classes the week of Memorial to end up our school year. We do an open studio. It's the same thing we did for Christmas and for Thanksgiving. So should be familiar to everybody. As we get into May, in the first May video, I'll have a spot for you to sign up for when your open studio is. Just so we know and have an accurate record of attendance. But we're going to talk about that more, but just for people who are like planning and they're like, when is our last class? Technically, your last class is the week of Memorial Day week. But it might be at a different time because it's an open studio. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, you guys, have a wonderful week. If you need anything from me, let me know. Otherwise, hopefully I see you soon.